For over 40 years, he was a ghost, a shadow that slipped through bedroom windows in the dead of night. He attacked more than 50 people, took 13 lives, and then he just vanished. The police had his DNA, they had his fingerprints, they had hundreds of clues, but they could never find him. Until one day in 2018, when a retired officer's granddaughter uploaded something to the internet that would crack the case wide open. This is the true story of the Golden State Killer. If you love true crime mysteries, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and drop a comment below telling us what unsolved case you want us to cover next. It started on a quiet summer night in 1976 in a small town called Rancho Cordova, just outside Sacramento, California. A young woman was alone in her home. It was around 3 in the morning when she woke up to a strange feeling. Someone was in her room. Before she could scream, a gloved hand covered her mouth. A flashlight beam blinded her eyes. A man's voice, cold and threatening, whispered in her ear, "Don't move, or I'll kill you." The attacker wore a ski mask. She couldn't see his face. He tied her hands with shoelaces he brought with him. For the next few hours he terrorized her, ransacked her home, and then disappeared into the darkness as mysteriously as he had arrived. The police came. They took reports. They looked for clues, but there wasn't much to go on. Just a description that fit thousands of men, average height, athletic build, wearing dark clothes and a mask. They thought it was a one-time thing, a random burglary gone wrong. They were so wrong. 2 weeks later, he struck again. Same city, same pattern. Another woman, alone at night. The ski mask, the flashlight, the shoelaces, the whispered threats. Then it happened again, and again, and again. By the end of 1977, he had attacked more than 20 women in the Sacramento area. The police realized they had a serious problem. This wasn't random. This was someone who planned everything carefully. He studied his victims. He broke into their homes days before to unlock windows and doors. He cut phone lines so they couldn't call for help. He knew when they would be alone. The newspapers started calling him the East Area Rapist. People in Sacramento were terrified. Women bought guard dogs. Men stayed home from work to protect their families. Hardware stores sold out of locks and security systems. But here's the thing that made everyone even more afraid. He seemed to know everything about the police investigation. It was almost like he could read their minds. When they set up patrols in one neighborhood, he would attack in a different one. When they tried to set traps, he avoided them perfectly. Some officers started to wonder, could he be one of them? Could he be a police officer? The attacks had a pattern, but the pattern was strange. Sometimes he would spend hours in a victim's home, eating food from their refrigerator, drinking their beer. He would go through family photo albums. He would steal small personal items that had no real value, a single earring, a high school class ring, old photographs. And he talked. A lot. He would cry sometimes, mumbling things that didn't make sense. "I hate you, Bonnie," he would say. "I hate you." Who was Bonnie? Nobody knew. He also made phone calls. After some attacks, he would call his victims days or even months later, just to scare them, just to let them know he remembered them. The phone would ring in the middle of the night, and all they would hear was heavy breathing or that same cold whisper. "Remember me?" The police brought in the FBI. They created task forces. They worked day and night. But every time they got close, he slipped away. Then, in October 1979, something changed. He moved south about 400 miles away to Southern California, and his crimes became much worse. A couple was at home in Goleta, near Santa Barbara. It was late at night. They were sleeping when he broke in. This time, he didn't just attack. He killed them both. Shot them dead. The police in Southern California didn't connect it to the East Area Rapist at first. Why would they? Sacramento was so far away. They thought this was a different criminal. They called this one the original Night Stalker, but he wasn't done. Over the next few years, he killed more people, always couples, always at night, always in their own homes where they should have been safe. By 1986, he had killed 10 more people in Southern California. And then, just as mysteriously as he had started, he stopped. The attacks ended. The phone calls ended. Everything ended. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. Years passed. Then decades. The cases grew cold. The detectives who had worked on them retired or passed away. The victims grew older, still living with their trauma, still wondering who had done this to them. But they never forgot. And some people never stopped looking. In the early 2000s, DNA technology got better. The police could now test evidence from old crime scenes in new ways. They tested everything they had collected from the East Area Rapist cases and the original Night Stalker cases. And they made a shocking discovery. The DNA matched. It was the same person. The East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same man. He had attacked people in Northern California for years, then moved south and started killing, then vanished. One person, 50 attacks, 13 murders, over a period of 10 years. And then nothing. They gave him a new name, the Golden State Killer. The police uploaded his DNA profile to every criminal database they had. They checked it against millions of people. Nothing. No matches. Whoever he was, he had never been arrested for anything serious enough to have his DNA taken. Or maybe he had just been lucky. Some people thought he might be dead. Maybe that's why he stopped. Others thought he might be in prison for something else, under a different name. But nobody knew for sure. By 2017, it seemed like the case would never be solved. The Golden State Killer had become one of the most wanted criminals in American history, and also one of the most mysterious. But then something happened that nobody expected. A website called GetMatch became popular. It was a place where people could upload their DNA results from companies like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. People used it to find long-lost relatives, to build family trees, to learn about their ancestors. An investigator named Paul Holes, who had worked on the Golden State Killer case for over 20 years, had an idea. What if they uploaded the killer's DNA to GetMatch? Not to find him directly, but to find his relatives? It was a long shot, but they had to try. In early 2018, they created a fake profile and uploaded the Golden State Killer's DNA to GetMatch. Then they waited. The results came back. There were matches. Distant relatives. Third cousins. Fourth cousins. People who shared a tiny bit of DNA with the killer, probably from a great-great-great-grandparent who lived 150 years ago. Now came the hard part. They had to build a family tree. They had to figure out how all these distant relatives were connected. They had to work backward through time, through births and deaths and marriages, until they found someone who fit the profile. A man, the right age, who lived in California during the 1970s and 1980s. It took weeks of work, 16-hour days, mountains of records, marriage certificates, birth certificates, obituaries, phone books from the 1970s. Slowly the family tree took shape, and slowly they narrowed down the suspects. 10 possibilities became 5. 5 became 3. 3 became 1. His name was Joseph James DeAngelo. He was 72 years old. He lived in a small town called Citrus Heights, just outside Sacramento, the same area where the East Area Rapist had started his attacks 42 years earlier. And here's the detail that made everyone's blood run cold. Joseph DeAngelo was a former police officer. He had worked for the Exeter Police Department in the 1970s, right around the time the attacks began. He knew police procedures. He knew how investigations worked. He knew how to avoid leaving evidence. He knew how to disappear. On April 24, 2018, police officers surrounded his house. They had to be sure. They needed his DNA to confirm it was really him, so they waited. They watched. They followed him. One day, he went shopping. He parked his car and went into a store. When he came back, he had a drink in his hand. He finished the drink and threw the cup in a public trash can. The officers waited until he drove away. Then they grabbed the cup from the trash. They sent it to the lab for DNA testing. The results came back. It was a match. After 42 years, they had found the Golden State Killer. They arrested him at his home. He was an old man now, living a quiet life. But the investigators knew the truth. This wasn't just some grumpy old man. This was someone who had terrorized California for a decade. Someone who had destroyed dozens of lives. Someone who had gotten away with it for more than 40 years. The question everyone wanted answered was simple. Who was Joseph DeAngelo, really? What made him do these terrible things? And how did he hide in plain sight for so long? The answers would turn out to be more disturbing than anyone imagined. Joseph James DeAngelo was born in 1945 in New York. His family moved around a lot because his father was in the Air Force. They lived in different places, different states, never staying anywhere too long. When Joseph was young, something happened that might have changed him forever. He was only 9 years old. He and his younger sister were in Germany, where their father was stationed. One day they witnessed something horrible. They saw their 7-year-old sister get hurt by 2 Air Force men. The family never talked about it. They buried it deep. But some investigators think this event planted something dark in Joseph's mind. As a teenager, Joseph seemed normal enough. He went to school. He played sports. He wasn't popular, but he wasn't an outcast either. Just average, forgettable. After high school, he joined the Navy. He served in Vietnam on a ship. When he came home, he went to college and studied criminal justice. Yes, criminal justice. He wanted to be a police officer. In 1973, he got his wish. He was hired by the Exeter Police Department, a small town in Central California. He was 27 years old. He wore the uniform. He carried a badge and a gun. He took an oath to protect people, but something was wrong with Joseph DeAngelo. Very wrong. In 1975, while he was still a police officer, he got engaged to a woman named Bonnie. Remember that name? The name he would whisper during his attacks. "I hate you, Bonnie." But the engagement didn't last. Bonnie broke it off. She fell in love with someone else and married him instead. Joseph was crushed. Friends said he became angry and bitter. He couldn't let it go. And then, just a few months after Bonnie left him, the attacks began. In 1976, the East Area Rapist struck for the first time in Rancho Cordova. That same year, something else happened. Joseph DeAngelo got a new job. He left the Exeter Police Department and joined the Auburn Police Department, which was much closer to Sacramento and Rancho Cordova. He was now a police officer in the exact area where the East Area Rapist was attacking people. Think about that for a moment. While police departments across Sacramento were hunting for the East Area Rapist, holding meetings, sharing clues, setting up patrols, one of their own officers was the man they were looking for. He would finish his police shift, change out of his uniform, put on a ski mask, and become a monster. Then, the next morning, he would put the uniform back on and go to work as if nothing had happened. It was the perfect disguise. When neighbors saw a man walking through yards at night, they didn't call the police because they thought he might be the police, checking on suspicious activity. When victims described someone who knew police tactics, investigators thought maybe he was just a criminal who watched a lot of cop shows. Nobody seriously considered that he might actually be wearing a badge. But in 1979, Joseph DeAngelo made a mistake. He was caught shoplifting. A hammer and some dog repellent from a store. It was such a stupid crime for a police officer to commit. The Auburn Police Department was embarrassed. They fired him immediately. Losing his job seemed to make everything worse. Within months, he moved to Southern California, and that's when the murders began. He couldn't just attack anymore. Now he had to kill. From 1979 to 1986, he murdered 10 more people in Southern California. But he also started building a new, normal life. He got married in 1981 to a woman named Sharon. They had 3 daughters together. He got a new job working at a grocery warehouse. He went to work every day, came home to his family, mowed his lawn, went to his daughter's school events. By all outward appearances, he was just a regular dad, a little quiet, a little grumpy, but normal. His wife Sharon had no idea. His daughters had no idea. His co-workers had no idea. He kept his two lives completely separate. And then, in 1986, he stopped attacking and killing. Just stopped. Cold turkey. Why? Nobody knows for sure. Maybe he was scared of getting caught. Maybe he was getting older and didn't have the energy anymore. Maybe having daughters made him see his victims differently. Or maybe he just decided he had done enough damage. For the next 32 years, Joseph DeAngelo lived a quiet life. He retired from his warehouse job. He worked on his motorcycle. He worked in his yard. He kept to himself mostly. His neighbors in Citrus Heights thought he was odd. He would yell at people sometimes for no reason. He would mutter to himself. One neighbor said she once heard him screaming in his backyard in the middle of the night, but when she looked, he was alone. But nobody suspected the truth. How could they? The attacks had happened so long ago. The Golden State Killer was practically a legend now, a ghost story, not a real person living next door. When the police arrested him in April 2018, they searched his house. What they found was chilling. They found his old police uniforms carefully preserved. They found hundreds of items stolen from victims over the years. Jewelry, photographs, personal belongings. He had kept them all, like trophies. They also found something else, evidence that he had been following the case online. He knew people were still looking for him. He knew about the DNA evidence. He had read news articles about the investigation, and he thought he was safe. He never imagined that his distant relatives, people he had never even met, would accidentally help catch him by uploading their DNA to a genealogy website. The arrest made headlines around the world. After 42 years, the Golden State Killer finally had a name and a face. Victims who had lived in fear for decades finally had answers. Some cried with relief. Others felt angry that it took so long. Joseph DeAngelo's wife Sharon was devastated. She filed for divorce almost immediately. She told investigators that she had no idea. Their daughters, now grown women with families of their own, were horrified. They released a statement saying they loved their father but couldn't comprehend what he had done. In June 2020, Joseph DeAngelo went to court. He was 74 years old now, frail and in a wheelchair. He looked nothing like the athletic man who had terrorized California in the 1970s and 1980s. The court proceedings took several days. One by one, survivors stood up and spoke directly to him. They told him how he had destroyed their lives, how they had lived with nightmares for 40 years, how they had never felt safe in their own homes again, how some had been too afraid to get married or have children because they couldn't trust anyone. He sat there and listened. He showed no emotion, no remorse, nothing. Some family members of victims who had been murdered also spoke. They talked about parents and sisters and brothers who were taken from them, people who never got to see their children grow up, people who never got to retire or travel or enjoy their grandchildren because of him. At the end of the hearing, the judge asked Joseph DeAngelo if he wanted to say anything. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath. Would he finally explain why he did it? Would he apologize? Would he show any human feeling at all? He stood up slowly. He took off his mask. Everyone was wearing masks because of COVID-19. And he spoke. His voice was quiet and shaky. "I've listened to all your statements," he said, "each one of them. And I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt." That was it. That was all he said. 9 words. "I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt." No explanation, no details, no real accountability. Just a brief, hollow apology that felt empty to many people in that room. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 11 consecutive life sentences plus 15 life sentences. Even though he was old, even though he was sick, he would die in prison. He would never be free again. As they took him away, victims and family members felt a mix of emotions. Relief that he would never hurt anyone again. Anger that it took so long to catch him. Sadness for all the years lost, all the lives destroyed. Some people wondered about all the years he lived as a normal person. How did he do it? How did he go to his daughter's birthday parties and tuck them into bed at night, knowing what he had done to other people's daughters? How did he sit at the dinner table with his wife and pretend everything was fine? Psychologists say that some people can compartmentalize their lives like this. They can keep their dark side completely separate from their normal side. To his family he was dad, to his victims he was a nightmare, and somehow he was both. One of the most haunting questions is this: are there others like him out there? Other people living normal lives, hiding terrible secrets? Other cold cases that could be solved with the same DNA technique that caught DeAngelo? The answer is probably yes. Since DeAngelo's arrest, police have used genetic genealogy to solve dozens of other cold cases. Killers who thought they got away with it decades ago are being arrested. Families are finally getting answers. But it also raises questions about privacy. Is it okay to use DNA websites to catch criminals? Most people say yes when it catches murderers. But where do we draw the line? Today, Joseph DeAngelo sits in a California prison. He's in his late 70s now. He spends his days alone, protected from other inmates who might want to hurt him. He doesn't get visitors. His family wants nothing to do with him. The survivors are trying to move forward. Some have found peace. Others are still struggling. But they all agree on one thing: knowing who he was, seeing him arrested, watching him get sentenced. It helped. Not completely. The wounds are too deep for that. But it helped. The Golden State Killer case changed how we investigate crimes. It showed that no case is ever truly cold. Technology keeps improving. Techniques keep getting better. And sometimes justice takes 40 years, but it still comes. It also taught us something uncomfortable. Monsters don't always look like monsters. They can wear police uniforms. They can be someone's dad. They can live next door and wave hello when you check your mailbox. Joseph DeAngelo fooled everyone for more than 40 years. He was the person nobody suspected, the man who hid in plain sight. But in the end, he couldn't hide forever. A discarded cup in a trash can. A distant cousin's DNA uploaded to a website. That's all it took to bring down one of the most dangerous criminals in American history. The families of the victims, the survivors, and the investigators who never gave up, they all proved something important. The truth always finds a way to come out. It might take years. It might take decades. But eventually it comes out. And that's the story of the Golden State Killer. A man who terrorized California, who thought he was too smart to ever get caught, and who finally faced justice when science and determination caught up with him. If this story affected you, please remember, there are resources available for victims of crime. You are not alone. And if you know someone who needs help, reach out to them. Sometimes just listening can make all the difference. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our true crime documentaries. Drop a comment below and let us know what other unsolved mysteries should we investigate. We'll see you in the next one.